Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
Hi, and welcome to the See You on the Other Side podcast live. We're here at the Revolution Taco and Tequila Bar in Little Rock, Arkansas. And this is my first time in downtown Little Rock. And I thought it was nice. It was rainy, but it was nice. So for anybody who's watching for the first time or listening to the podcast for the first time, my name is Mike Huberty. I play in a band called Sunspot, and then I also work on Madison Haunted History Tour. And with me is
Wendy Lynn Stotts, and I am the drummer for Sunspot and the hostess of See You on the Other Side.
And tonight, since we're in Little Rock, we wanted to talk to a haunted expert in Little Rock.
That's right.
That's why you brought in Linda Howell from Haunted Little Rock Tours.
Yes, welcome to the show, Linda. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Nice to be here.
We're really happy that you were able to do this, and excited to talk to you about your many adventures and investigations. And
you do know that rain heightens the energy level of spirits. Anything can happen.
You know what? I hadn't heard that about rain, but we were talking about water and how rivers and things like spirits kind of tend to linger in those areas. So that's
like a conductor of electricity.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, maybe
that's all spirits are, is electricity.
Maybe tonight we'll have, it is raining. It was a dreary day, and we had a long, very dreary drive from St. Louis. So we're glad to be here, and if the spirits are here with us too, then even better.
Let's invite them to join us, shall we? Yes, I think
Let's. Yes.
Toss a chair.
Right, because I would love to wet my pants live.
And I'd like to see that happen myself.
Sure, no, it's actually
sorry you folks out there won't be able to see it.
Careful what you wish for.
It's a very popular thing on the internet, I heard. Okay, so starting with, so you run haunted history tours in Little Rock.
My company is Haunted Tours of Little Rock.
Okay. And
I've been a tour guide for about 10 years.
Okay.
Doing all types of tours, and about 6 years ago, I used to work at the Little Rock Visitor Center, and I don't know if you've read chapter 1 in the book.
Yep.
Okay.
Very haunted spot.
Yes. So that was my first experience with someone coming in. It's a visitor center and saying, you have a spirit following you around, and her name is
interesting.
Mary. And so from that point on, Little Rock really needed to have a haunted tour. Because already being in the tour business, we had a lot of requests, do you have haunted tours and so on. So that's what started me thinking. And because I needed to have...
When somebody said to you, you have someone following you around, like, what was your... who is it?
What would you think, Mike?
Right, I would freak out.
I didn't freak out.
I'd wonder if they were friendly, or if they were menacing, or if they were like, why are you in my house?
This monkey on your back.
Well, knowing the history of the house... Mm-hmm. Then he said her name. Her name is Mary Eliza. And I said, we've had 2 Mary Elizas associated with the house. One was building the house, but died before moving into it. And then the next one came down years and years later. She was like the 4th owner, I believe. And so I showed him a picture of her, and he said, no, she's too old. This one is a very young woman. And then I knew it was Mary Eliza Walters.
The original.
Yes. And building. So... And I mentioned in the book about the coffee maker. We're having an event there one night, and, you prepare the coffee maker for the following day. So, the caraffe's clean, there's no grounds, there's no water, nothing. It is plugged in, however, but it is turned off.
Right.
So all at once we start smelling this coffee, and I'm going into the part of the building where the coffee maker was. And here it is. And you have this surreal feeling when you have a paranormal experience. It's like you're seeing something, but you're trying to make sense out of it, and there is no way.
Right.
I knew, because I cleaned it, that I'm thinking is some water in the reservoir, but why is the coffee there?
Yeah, how did that get in there?
Now, Mike, would you have drank any of that coffee? You would, I know.
It depends on how tired I was.
I only just met you, but I have a feeling that you would.
I would probably be like, give me the paranormal. I want the ghost coffee.
Give me a cup. I want to try it. Well, I had to unplug it to get it to stop because obviously it was already turned off. So it was getting ready. It was making a full pot.
Wow.
Now, where does the spirit world get coffee grounds and, know how to do these things? It smelled so darn good.
I bet.
Yeah. And I thought, where would I be today, if I had drank it? Beyond the line, beyond the veil.
One never knows.
Nevertheless, having a lot of energy, I'm sure. So at that point, we've had some other things that happened. A rocking chair on the porch was rocking without it being a very windy day. Just pictures falling off the wall, little incidental things. So I got a letter from Arkansas Ghost Catchers, Rhonda Burton, and she said she wanted to investigate some historic properties. Would we be interested? And that was the beginning of our relationship in the paranormal community. And she came in. She's just, spirits like her, they come out because she is very respectful. And she doesn't horse around. She just wants to help if she can in any way. And so we set up the recorders. Y'all have been part of an investigation?
I've done a couple.
I have.
Okay. Well, you set up recorders. You have to have a pretty sterile environment because, for instance, if the microphone of the recorder is close to your stomach and it growls, it has a demonic sound.
Sure. Yeah, I've had that happen.
So then you're thinking,
there's been some Sunday mornings where it's like, whoa.
Exactly. So whenever you have your recorder going and something happens, like we had a lot of traffic on the street, she'd say that's a car going by.
Oh, okay.
Because when you go back to review, and
you don't
hear
remember
these
those
sounds,
things.
Right, you're going to go, wow, what was that? Nevertheless, I was asking Mary, I said, if Mary Walters is here, I want to know if you approve of what I'm telling about you, your story. And, is the Colonel here, your husband? And about that time, I just got this bone chill when you're close to a spirit. It's a chill you'll never experience, even in Wisconsin. You can put a coat on there and some heat. But when a spirit is coming through you, it's like nothing you've ever experienced. And I was sitting this close to Rhonda, as close as Mike and I are. For the listeners, it's about 2 feet.
Right, so right there.
And
thank you for that.
There was a 7-degree difference in our temperatures. We had the meters to capture that. And
that's pretty hard to describe with physics.
Yes,
chills don't come through room like airflow does not.
Like I feel a nice cool breeze coming in here now.
Yeah.
But that's not a swirl of spirits.
Right. Well,
okay.
or is
that's
it?
the fan going.
So this is at the, I guess the Little Rock Visitor Center
It is
the place to go.
It's called Curran Hall.
So that would be, because a lot of people, when they go on haunted, or they just go on a trip, they want to check out that. They want to go to a bar that has a ghost story. They want to go to a place like that. And so the Little Rock Visitor Center would be the first place I would go because number one, it's free. Number two, there's a lot of people who can answer your questions about the history.
It's a beautiful place. It was built in 1843, so it's very historic.
And just so everybody knows, Linda has written a book called Haunted Little Rock. And it's a really neat telling of a lot of these places. And that was the first chapter, right?
Right.
So it's the introductory chapter, but she goes throughout the book, the different chapters discuss the different places. And I thought it was...
the book is really written for someone to use it as a self-guide. You can start out at the Visitor Center. You go up 3 blocks to the museum. You go another few blocks to the Empress.
Oh, that's cool.
So this way you can do, because I'm not always available.
A self-guided tour.
Right. So you can go in the day or the nighttime.
Yeah. And you had in the book, the descriptions that you give are very colorful and beautiful. And that was one thing that I really enjoyed about it. And it made me want to go to those places. But one thing that I thought was really interesting was that a lot of the buildings, local places here, were built using the raw materials from the rock and and so I don't know, that just gives it a real extra
genuine
local,
earthy feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the following day after this little investigation, Rhonda called me and she said, "You've got to hear this." And it was Mary's voice. And there's
I got chills when you said that.
A gasp like this, like she's taking a deep breath. And she goes, "Mary, that's who I am."
Oh my gosh, look at this. I have goosebumps right now.
For those of you who can't see this, Wendy's having chills right now.
I am, but that's such a cool story because especially related to, what you were asking her. And so, sounds like she was okay with you.
On the tour, that's the last stop. And we go on the porch because it's at nighttime. It's about 9:30 at this time. And I take my microphone and I hold it up to the recorder and all you hear is her voice amplified.
That's really cool.
Mary, that's who I am.
Oh, man. So Little Rock Visitor Center, where did the stories come from? You said Mary, and then you said Eliza?
Well, her name is Mary Eliza Walters.
Okay, so Mary Eliza.
Yeah.
And then who's the Colonel?
The Colonel was her husband. He was a few years older than her. They'd been married for a few years. They were living in her uncle's house, which is right across the street from here. Kind of catty corner over where they have a parking deck.
She says catty corner too.
That's right. It must be a regional thing.
It must be a regional thing.
Cheesehead thing, right?
No, we say
kitty corner.
We say kitty corner.
Oh,
and
kitty corner. That sounds like a child.
Or like a kitty cat, like a kitty.
Right. And
kitty
so we were
corner.
talking when we were talking last night. It's like, no, it's catty corner from here. And I'm like, catty corner? What's that about?
I got you. You were in Missouri. Is that who said it?
Right around the board, like
right across from the river from St. Louis in
so
Illinois.
It's a regional thing.
I mean.
Well, nevertheless, anyway, right across the street.
Okay, fair enough. That we all
over there is where Chester Ashley's house. He's one of the founding fathers of the city, and he was Mary's uncle. Mm-hmm. They were living with him after they go, and you've read this in the book, I know, but after they have gone to review the building of the house, and they're about ready to move in, she dies in childbirth. And so they never lived in the house. Her husband just leaves Little Rock and goes to fight in the Mexican War, where he's really badly wounded. He comes back here, and he's buried here in our old cemetery.
Okay.
But there was a succession of people who lived in the house. For instance, the other Mary Eliza Woodruff Bell is the daughter of one of our very distinguished citizens. He brought the first printing press here, printed the first newspaper. William Woodruff. Well, her brother was living in the house, and he knew there was a ghost there, so he painted everything black, hoping that he would see her. And everyone has always felt that it was Mary Walters.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I noticed the walls here are black, so perhaps
maybe we'll see something weird. Inside.
I don't know what you do, Mike, if you see something.
Right, we've already covered the pants wetting side of things.
Yeah, so run right out.
I'll be here to protect you.
Well, I mean, let's talk. So the thing is we were talking about, when you had your first, you were giving people tours, working in the visitor center, and then somebody comes up and says, like, I see somebody behind you.
Right.
All right. Now, you had to be pretty open to that whole thing already if you were going to
I had a feeling. It's like when you have a feeling that you know something is going on. And I could never put my finger on anything, but it didn't seem out of the ordinary. I was not afraid. I was kind of flattered in a way. I would love to know what she looked like.
Sure.
I have someone who has impaired vision who was on my tour. And when he came to the house, he described her to me. Although he had impaired vision, they have an extra sense. If one of your senses is impaired, you develop something else. And he described what I felt like she had always looked like. Very young, with her brown hair pulled back. And she is there because she's looking for her baby. So that means the baby would have been buried on the property, which would have been the custom at that time. Okay. Because when you have homesteads, and it's just a few blocks from here. This is where all of Little Rock was busy at that time in 1843.
Okay, the main drag.
Right here at the river's edge, that's correct. And so 3 blocks from here, you're starting to get into the wilderness, and so that's where they were building their, homestead. And it could very well be that the baby was buried there. So that makes me think they didn't die at the same time. The baby died, and the colonel buried her, baby. And then Mary dies after that because she's buried over at the old cemetery.
Okay, and so then she comes back. Well, that's really crazy. I mean, when you were younger, but I mean, before that happened, was this something that you were interested in? Was this?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't until, I guess, about this time that I started. I mean, you think of like ghostly things and you get scared. I still get scared about a lot of things. But there was just something special about that. There's something special about the house and I. And this will kind of floor you. She died on my birthday.
Uh-oh.
Wow. That's interesting.
So could I be the reincarnated child?
It could be.
Oh.
She has been with me. I don't feel her anymore. But I've had cell phone issues, and I've been told, there's something wrong with your phone that we can't figure out, like it calls itself. It won't turn off, things like that. So, and she's just been around me. Other people have felt it. But I don't feel it as much. When I had to quit there to start the tour.
So that was your first introduction into this whole thing.
Exactly, it was. I was a grown-up with a lot of good sense.
Well, no, I mean,
But I will say that the paranormal background stuff comes in my family. My aunt lived at the museum to build up a museum back in the day. She lived in the basement, and because she wanted to communicate with the spirit world, she conducted seances in the building, which could lead us to believe that's why we have maybe a portal there for the spirits to come and go.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, because the seance is in that.
Right.
And perhaps...
Yes.
And so you've done the seance?
No, I don't want to deal with any seances or...
Because I was wondering if perhaps...
I just want to go into a place and have a recorder and say, is there anybody here?
Yeah.
I like to use dowsing rods.
Okay.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and that's what I was using when Mary came through.
Oh, wow.
I said, are you here? Have you ever used them? You know what they are?
I have
I've
not.
seen people use dowsing rods, but maybe you can explain it.
Well, they're at a 90-degree angle, and you have a brass, it's like a coat hanger thickness, and it's been at the 90-degree angle, and it goes inside a copper tubing because that's metal, and it's a conductor of electricity. And so you have to hold it. It can be very stressful if you're doing it for very long, but you hold it so that they are perfectly balanced because they're very wobbly.
Okay.
And then you begin to ask yes and no questions. For instance, you want to always say, I mean you no harm. I come in peace. There is nothing that I would change about anything, about where you are or who you are.
Make
but
them
we'd just
comfortable.
like to know, let's just relax here, like we're doing,
Yeah, exactly.
having a chat. So, I have rods here that can tell me yes or no. We can ask questions. For instance, if you cross the rods, that's the answer for yes. And then I'd like for you to return them to the start position or the open position. And if the answer is no, then you open them wide.
Okay.
Now, once you start doing that and they do open them up, then you've got somebody that you're communicating with.
And they understand the process.
Exactly. I can be at home and I'll sit there and they're perfectly balanced. And all at once, one will start to move and it'll turn all around and point to me. I'm not talk to it. I'm not asking if anybody's there because I really don't want to know at home.
Right. I was going to say, so do you think that they're just like trying to figure out the communication technique?
A lot of people don't like to use them because they think you can move them. But literally, if you're holding them,
you know.
You're right. I said, I know. You can't negotiate that one rod to turn and completely turn around. You have to turn your hand. I mean,
well, what's the difference between a dowsing rod and like a Ouija board? Like a Ouija board, you think is the same thing? Well, that's what I want. That's what I wonder. Because to me, it'd be the same kind of thing. Like it's
it
two
has the
people
yes/no
with the hands on there, just
that's true.
Moving around.
The same principle.
But it's going through the person as opposed to just going through the copper, right?
It's really the same thing because you're trying to communicate with someone on the other side, whether it be demonic or angelic. But it is true. You're trying to get somebody to tell you that they're there so they'll move, either the rods. So in that regard, they're the same. And you still need protection. So when I say there's a lot of difference, I just mean... I guess the operation of both, the spelling something out on the Ouija board and yes or no.
And it's going through you because your hands are what's making the thing, so to me, it feels like the
and
spirit.
Once again, is it you moving, especially if you're with someone? You're saying, are you doing that? We've all tried a Ouija board.
We had one when we were kids. It was Parker Brothers.
Right. You do it for fun.
That's right. I hope it's not in the attic
Party.
still.
Right. It was like a party game. And by the way, if I ever am a ghost, I'm going to find every party where there's little kids and I'm going to say scary things.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to get them on their Ouija board.
It's always a question of like, when will I die? And then I'd be the person that'd be like, tomorrow.
Or I would be like, I'm living in your closet. And I come out at night.
Don't close your eyes.
Have y'all seen The Conjuring, the movie?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Were you scared?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I'm scared to death in The Conjuring. It was a good one. That was a good one. Yeah, and I'd recommend, Wendy, you should see that.
I don't know, man.
Like tomorrow. It's not
I
Netflix.
have nightmares.
Just go to Netflix.
I have nightmares.
You will have that. That's going for nightmares.
That movie didn't move me at all. My son was telling me about it, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm so scared." You know, he was telling me about it, so I watched it. But there is something on Facebook, and I don't know, some kind of video, and this woman goes to turn the light out down the hall, and she sees like a piece of furniture. When she turns the light out, she looks down the hall, and she sees what looks like a shadow person. So she turns the light on again. I guess because I've got a long hallway and I've thought about those things.
Okay, so that's what got you.
And so, anyway, she looks, she turns the light on. It's the furniture. She sees the shadow person when she turns the light off. She turns it on again, and the furniture's there. When she turns it off, the shadow person's gone. She sees the furniture. So then she goes to bed. She leaves the door. She leaves the hall light on. She has her door cracked.
Okay.
And you know what's going to happen. She's sitting there all bundled up with her covers, and the light goes off.
Oh.
See, that's the kind of stuff that I get scared about.
Yes. Yes. Well, the whole shadow people thing is something that, I mean.
That's right.
That seems to have come about in the past 20 years.
So it's a new thing?
Well, as far as when you read books from like the 70s or something, it's like they don't talk about shadow people. But then shadow people became a big thing maybe in the past, 10, 15 years.
That's true.
Yeah,
And,
I remember Art Bell talking about that, and just so many people calling in that had experiences, and it became kind of a regular thing that they'd bring up periodically.
It's amazing how this revolution, not this place particularly, but I mean,
that's right. We are at the Revolution Room.
The revolution of interest in the paranormal community.
I think so.
You've got all of these shows. For instance, A&E Biography contacted me, wanted me to do my ghost story about Curran Hall. And I was going, no. I travel back and forth to North Carolina frequently. And I said, no, I don't have time to do that. Then they contacted Rhonda because they read about it somewhere. Rhonda finally said, okay, well, they wanted us to do like an interview or tape something on the phone and send to them, which we did. Anyway, long story short, they fly us to L.A.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
And took us into the studio. When you were having trouble over there, it reminded me of that. Have you ever been on television where you go into an all-dark room? Okay.
No, I haven't done that.
Okay, well, it's kind of like this. Anyway, but everything's black.
Yeah, because they're trying to...
And if you've ever seen the show, there's this one chair that sits under a light, and the person that's telling their ghost story is the one sitting in the chair.
Okay, sure.
So I went in before Rhonda. Everybody was averaging about 15 minutes. And so I went in there and I sat down, and you could hear over in the corner, they were trying to plug things in, and they said, nothing works. We could have no power anywhere. And that was a trip I thought Mary was with me. And so...
Cool. She wanted to see L.A.?
She did.
Mary goes to Hollywood.
And she says, when are we going back home?
Yeah, right.
So, anyway, I'm just sitting in this chair, and there's only this one light dangling over the producer who's supposed to be asking me questions. And so I was in there for 45 minutes because they couldn't get any power to work. And I said, look, okay, it's probably a spirit. Let's acknowledge that. And all at once, all the lights came on. And so
that's all they wanted.
When I got back to the green room, Rhonda said, where have you been? I was getting worried. I said, I think Mary's pulling plugs.
Well, thank goodness that you understood what was going on and you were able to get things going.
What did the crew say? Were they like, hey, how did that happen?
I thought, here they are working on a ghost show.
Right. They should
never even thought about that.
Right. You would think
that's right. All they're worried about is technicality, and if you're going to be. In fact, when they sent their cameraman here on location, they had like a script. So they wanted us to reenact certain things.
Oh, I see.
So Rhonda and I are in the living room, the parlor at Curran Hall, going through what we did that night. And she begins to have a real paranormal experience with a spirit using the dowsing rods. And she can't control this crying. These tears are just flooding.
Wow. The
cameraman, instead of continuing to film that... He says, okay, well, this isn't in the script. I can tell there's something going on here. So he stops filming because he has to stick strictly to the script.
Oh, my gosh. So he could have really captured something amazing.
I said, this is a real paranormal experience.
Like, how many opportunities do you have
Don't you want to get...
when you have the cameras there?
Not on my...
Oh, gosh.
Not on a shot.
Okay.
And that's sad. We were talking a little bit last night when we were in Alton with Luke... we were talking about how the shows,
They do.
He was telling us how he didn't necessarily appreciate the way a lot of them
They don't.
go in, and they're not respectful, and they're, like you said, they're sticking to a script. They're not actually going in and genuinely being interested in what's happening there. It's more of,
They're trying to be Halloween-like.
Yeah, create a story.
People want to know if they're going to be scared on my tour. I always say, no, it's not a Halloween-themed tour. I deal with the real thing. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that you may not be touched by something. Yeah. You may not feel a cold chill, but it's not going to be scary. You're going to learn about that spirit that's in that location.
And I think that's neat, too, just being in the place where you know that people have seen and witnessed things, and you know the history behind it, so it's not crazy to think that.
I also think it's important, and this seems to be a recurring theme when we talk to a lot of people who go on these. Is that the whole thing is not scary. Like it's nobody wants. These are just regular people who are dead, and they don't want to hurt you. They don't want to do anything.
What'd you just say? Now what?
Regular people. I mean, the ghosts or whatever are.
They were once live people.
Yeah, they're not
and someday
evil, or
they don't want to crossed over.
They don't want to bring your neck.
Where do you think the veil is? Where do you think the afterlife is?
I have no idea.
Where?
The afterlife.
Yeah, what's it like?
The veil. They say the veil is thinnest at Halloween time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think
we talked about that because that's been the tradition of they trick or treated at Thanksgiving and stuff like that. My sister and I were looking at some different traditions, and it seems like supernatural traditions lasted not from. I mean, Halloween was maybe the start, but they lasted all the way up until Christmas, and that's why. When you have a Christmas carol, that's why they're telling. It's a tradition to tell ghost stories on Christmas.
When you hear, there'll be scary ghost stories, and it's like, wait, scary ghost stories,
and it's because, the whole basis of Halloween is the fact that when it starts getting dark earlier, and when it's the harvest season, that's when you say the veil is the thinnest, and for all the way up until the longest night of the year. In late December, that's when the veil is really the thinnest on the solstice. And so, as you were saying, that's when, you dressed up like a monster or you dressed up like a spirit so that they wouldn't know that you were one, that you weren't
Interesting.
One. And so that's when you're talking about when the veil is the thinnest. So
yeah, I always did think that was weird that it's the most wonderful time of the year. Mm-hmm. It's this sort of cheerful song, and then all of a sudden there'll be scary ghost stories. And hold on, what? How does that fit into the song?
What do you do at Christmas?
What's wonderful about that? No, I mean, I do think that's wonderful, but most people might not.
Last year, Halloween. A tour fell on Halloween night.
Oh, cool.
And so generally, I'll either have I always reserve it for people if they want. I don't make plans in case they do, regardless of what day it falls on. And then November 1st, or one of the first Fridays in November, because it's every Friday when I do it. Oh, okay. And we're going into our 6th year now, so they pretty much know that it's either the last Saturday of September. But anyway, it just depends. They know it's a good 4 or 5 Fridays in October. Cool. It's just that that's when there's so much interest, and it's easy to schedule them all.
Yeah.
Throughout the year, I just get like a handful.
Right.
People have suggested that I try to do maybe one haunted tour a month. And that way, just kind of
standing.
Yeah, just kind of let the word out. Okay, the third Friday. We have second Friday art night here where the town turns out. You go to the museums, things
cool.
like that.
That sounds fun.
So it'd be like, fourth Friday ghost night or something.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a fun idea. Especially for anybody coming in at town like conventions or anything like that.
Yes.
They're always looking for something to do. And there's a lot of people who are like, well, I want to do something different. And there's nothing more different than the haunted history tour of a town.
Not to mention, it's so characteristic of the local, you're learning about the local history of Little Rock. You're not just, you're learning about it in a fun way, I guess. To me, it's fun.
A lot of people think that we were kind of very backward and just early settlers coming here. But the early settlers were attorneys, doctors, educators. Most everyone had a good set of books. So educated people came here, realizing that, we were on the edge of the frontier.
Right.
We became a state in 1836. And not a lot of people know this, but the Civil War almost started here.
I learned that in your book.
How did the Civil War almost start here? Almost start.
It's really
we always heard like Fort Sumter or whatever, right? Is where they launched the first.
Right. Good for you, being from Wisconsin.
We had to learn
By
a little
the way,
bit
it was a Wisconsin regiment that took my grandfather's flag from him, and
oh no,
he was carrying the Mississippi flag.
We're not from
right. I had no part in that war.
I know, and I was born there for goodness' sake. So I mean,
right, so
he would not be very proud of me. Well, along about the time that, there were rumors of war, rumors of secession. It would have been, I think, early February 1861, because I think Sumter was fired upon May of 1861. Okay. So a few months before that, of course, we had the, what you read about is the MacArthur Museum in the book. It started out as the Tower Building.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite
the
locations.
Little Rock Arsenal, yes, because in 1840, the government said, Little Rock, you're on the edge of the frontier. You've got to protect yourself. We had about 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans coming through here on the Trail of Tears. We were part of that, going to Oklahoma. And they were, we're talking thousands. They were afraid there might be an uprising.
Well, if you want to talk about energy from a traumatic event.
Oh, my
God.
Like the Trail of Tears, that's a pretty traumatic event.
And they were right over across the bridge here on the North Little Rock side. That's where the trail was going. So anyway, with all of this going on, by the time 1861 came, we were, of course, part of the United States, and for just a few years. And we had about 70, maybe, soldiers there with the Union Army. And so all of this, starting to get stirred up, are we going to secede? We were one of the last states to secede. So we had a lot of the plantation owners, other people who were for the Southern cause going to come up here in Little Rock. We're going to march and take our arsenal back. It's going to be ours. And that would have happened in February. But Lieutenant Totten said, I'm going to sneak out of here. And he tried to send, there was a telegraph coming into play at that time. And he was trying to get word from Washington about what he should do. And it was kind of all sent the wrong way or whatever. The message never got to him. So he made the decision and talked to the governor. I'm just going to pull out everyone. And so he was considered to be a hero because
he probably saved a lot of lives.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, probably.
Because they were ready for a major brouhaha.
They were. Yeah, it was going to be the start of the war.
Yeah.
So there's actually a historic plaque in the yard over there at the museum.
Cool. Yeah, that building sounds, what the different uses of it, and I was kind of fascinated by that.
Yeah.
Because it was an arsenal and then it was converted into residence.
Well, yes. During its life, it started out as the arsenal, and it was very bland. There were no porches. In fact, the only way the tower comes from this circular stairway that was built to access all the floors. And you had to enter from the backside through the basement. So over the years, the first thing that happened, it became a museum. Once it was, because they moved the installation across the North Little Rock side over there, and so it was empty. That's when my great aunt decided she was going to start a museum.
Oh, cool.
She's Bernie Babcock. You should Google her sometime.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the name?
Bernie Babcock.
Okay, I'll check it out and I'll put a link in the show notes.
So she's a firm believer in the afterlife.
Okay.
So she decided she would just live in the basement over there. How she did it, I don't know. But anyway, she lived in the basement. She started the Museum of Science and Natural History because someone made a remark that Arkansans were just little country bumpkins. And she wanted to prove them wrong. Sure. She had every major museum in this country sending her artifacts.
How cool.
We had mummies. We had all kinds of things.
Yeah, that's pretty...
They said the boxcars on the trains were loaded out with just stuff coming. So that's how that museum was started. Neat. And then in her off time, she would have the seances over there.
Oh, that's where... Okay. So
that's Bernie Babcock.
Wow.
Yes.
She was into, she helped transform the image of Arkansas and held seances in the basement.
Get things started.
That's my kind of lady.
She was actually an authority on young Abe Lincoln. in his love.
Really?
She wrote the book, The Soul of Anne Rutledge, who was his first love, and she died. And she became friends with the Rutledge family and actually was given some jewelry from Anne Rutledge. So she really,
cool.
She had that connection.
We heard a great young Abe Lincoln story last night.
This is becoming a theme.
We were in Illinois last night, or the Illinois side of St. Louis. And anytime you're in Illinois,
nobody loves Abe Lincoln more than people in Illinois.
They're going to talk about Abe Lincoln. They're either going to talk about Abe Lincoln or talk about how bad Wisconsin drivers are. The two things they will talk about in Illinois. But there's a whole thing about young Abe Lincoln evading a duel on an island they used to call Smallpox Island.
And Sunflower Island, and wasn't it like Blood Island or something?
Yeah,
it was
because
something.
it was an island that Missouri didn't want and Illinois didn't want. So it was a no man's land that you could have duels on.
Because there was like no government.
Not convenient, right?
Yeah, so it was a place. So this guy kept on challenging Abe Lincoln to a duel.
Really?
And so he went out there, but Abe, through just being a charming guy, and 8 feet tall.
You can listen to the whole story in episode 30 of See You on the Other Side.
Yes, you can. We have the whole story.
Okay, I'll have to hear that.
He got the guy to forget the duel. They came out as friends and stuff like that.
It's a cool story, but
it's just
it's fascinating that we now have the Abe Lincoln
and a connection.
Yeah,
right.
It seems to be a theme
By
of
the
this
time
tour.
you get to Austin, there'll really be another connection.
That's right. Who knows? It's fun. It's fun when we themes and things that come up on a tour.
So you have a little bit of this in your family, but you never were into it before you had something like that.
A few years ago, right?
And so then when you started getting into it and you started running the tour, you start going on investigations too. Mm-hmm. And so what would you say? And this is a question we asked Luke last night. What would you say was your aha moment when it came to like, holy cow! That's something that I can't deny. Because I think if you're a lot of people who are into this stuff, they just have either they think it's really cool. Like I don't know if I've ever had an aha moment, but I just think it's fun, and I really like haunted history because it makes whatever town you're in more exciting. Yeah. When I learned all that stuff, we're not from Madison, we're just from the Milwaukee area. And so we came to Madison for college and stuck around. And I'm like, well, I don't know anything about the city or the history or anything really. And when you start learning about the history of a town, it just makes it so much cooler and so much more fun to realize, well, that place used to be a hotel. But
not everybody feels that way. That's what's sad.
That is sad.
Anybody who's interested in history eats it up. Yeah. They want to know everything.
Yeah.
So I share your interest. I share your excitement.
Because because when you grow up and if you just watch movies, everything happens in, like large cities or, you're like, well, Europe has thousands of years to deal. And we have, Wisconsin, you're like, man, it's like my aunt, my grandparents came here 100 years ago. You don't even have that much of history to deal with. So what was when you went on an investigation, what was your aha moment when you're like, hey, that's something that's something I know I can't explain.
Hearing Mary's voice, because the night before, I was so involved with the history of the house, because I would talk to people, the visitors coming through, I would talk to about it. So I had to know a lot about the house. And, just knowing so much about her already, and then hearing her voice was the raha, ha-ha moment.
Right. You know what I mean?
The exciting moment, yes.
And
then everything that was strangely surreal happening after that, I attributed to Mary. Because I just felt, and others felt too, because I had several investigations at the house. There was 2 gentlemen who came, brothers, and they were able to not only... They didn't connect with Mary, but they connected with the last owner of the house. Her name was Averill Tate. And a lot of people in Little Rock knew her because she only died like in 2003, something like that.
Okay, so the last owner of the house was around up until
That's right.
the last decade.
That's right. So once her family sold the house to the city, which was in about 1996, it took about 6 years to excavate. It was really condemned property. They had to rebuild it. Mm-hmm. But her name was Averill Tate. I am in communication with her daughter who lives in New Hampshire. And so she was able to fill me in on a lot of things about the house. But I have Averill's voice on there also. So, and people who go on the tour who knew her are almost white
That's gotta be really.
I sent the recording
intense.
to her daughter. I mean, spirits will usually just say their name. She has said Tate on several occasions, and the two brothers who came to investigate the house, when they heard that, they realized that this is the Avril Tate we were in school with. She would take like what do you call them, classes where it doesn't count toward a grad. You just take it.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
electives.
pass fail. Or, no,
Yeah, it's a fun course. But anyway, she was out there taking like history courses. And so they realized that they were in one of the classes with her. And it almost brought them to tears to realize this is the house we're investigating.
Oh, wow.
And if you go on YouTube to Curran Hall, Little Rock, you will see the video that they took. There's a curio cabinet, all glass with a mirrored back. And it has the artifacts found when they were excavating the property. So there's some glassware in there, things like that. You see when they're asking questions, and you can't make out what the question is, but their mother was part of the group, and she was asking, I don't know, somebody's here, whatever. And you see these bright lights within the cabinet flare up, just sparkle like that.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So they had to come back when they were reviewing their work. They came back, they said, we have to reenact this all over again to prove that it's not lights from the freeway, lights around
Reflection
the house.
Of something,
exactly. And they couldn't prove it. It's recessed into the wall.
Okay, so too far back.
So they declared that to be a paranormal hotspot.
Cool.
And that has to do with Avril. So we've heard from the original owner and the last owner.
That's pretty neat. I mean,
so would you say that there's more stories or more experiences in that house than any other place downtown, or?
No, everybody's got a lot of stories. But, I knew a lot about the house because it's just like I was writing about the cat woman. She was in the parking lot one day, and she would come and feed these cats. And I pulled in, and she had this white, spiky, feathery hair. I was trying to think of what she looked like. She kind of looked like the woman in Robin Hood. With Kevin Costner, Indian woman.
Yeah, the character that Tracy Ullman plays.
Yeah, right here.
She's the crazy witch.
Yeah. So
no, Tracy Ullman was in the Mel Brooks version.
I was going to say I didn't think she was this.
No, I know exactly who you're talking about.
I don't know the name.
Tracy Ullman's the character. Her name is Latrine in Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Oh yeah, right. This in the same movie.
I know, but it's okay. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Her hair kind of looked like mine does tonight in the rain.
Oh gosh.
So I pull in the parking place and I said, "Can I ask you something?" She goes, "I'm sorry, Scout won't eat if you're here." And I said, "Who is Scout?" She said, "This cat. He's the guardian of Curran Hall." I said, "He is?" And she said, "Yes. He was born here and he watches over the place, and unless you leave, he won't eat." And I said, "Well, I'll leave, but I just want to know who you are and who he is.
Yeah. Right.
Because you come here twice a day." And she said, "He is Scout. He's the guardian of Curran Hall." I said, "Okay, well, that's enough. That's fine. I want him to eat." So some time goes by. I was there for about, 3 or 4 years. She came by one day. She hadn't seen him. He used to hide under the shed. That's a neat place, the shed at Curran Hall. A lot of stories about that. The door shutting on us, locking in an employee.
Oh man.
Having a wedding out front, and the door opens on its own.
That makes it special.
We're in the house going, "Oh my God."
Right.
How do we tell the minister that the door is opening by a ghost behind him?
Yeah, right.
Anyway, we've had fun with it. So we found out that he had been attacked by some wild dogs. Some people in the area had taken Scout to the vet, and he didn't survive.
Aww.
And she just kind of crumbled up. Nobody ever saw her again.
So she was like Scout's.
She was like Scout's
guardian, kind of. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really
the cat lady at Curran Hall.
The cat lady at Curran Hall. And then there was the clock. When I was giving my 2 weeks notice, we had a grandfather clock that we had clockmakers in there. We'd all take turns. It had the weights that made it run.
Those are so cool.
Yeah, it was just, you just never could get it to run consistently. So I was sitting there. Rhonda would come in every afternoon, and we would sit there trying to record, and we did a lot of experiments with rippling water, where we picked up what may be a picture of Mary, because the image in the water came as you do these. And I understand nothing about camera action.
Okay, so wait, what is explain the experiment with the water. So what do you do?
Rhonda wanted to try something with a bowl of water, no bigger than about that. And you put water in it, and she has small, tripods with cameras on them looking down into the water. And she starts flickering it with, something this way. It was her fingertips, getting it to move, to be ripply. And so she's talking while she's doing that. And it's like, is there anyone here? We have a camera. We can pick up your image. You're talking to them like they're there. And when she goes back and looks at the evidence, all she sees is ripply water until
you pause
she sees the image of this woman. We're talking about split second.
So they're looking frame by frame.
Frame by frame, yes.
Okay.
And it's nothing. Wow. Here she sees this woman dressed in a black dress. It's kind of blurry. She obviously has her hair on top of her head, and there's a high collar, and there's something, either a child or an animal, right to her side. You can't make it out.
Is that the Guardian?
Yeah. Now we solved the riddle.
Kind of sounds like Mary Poppins from the description.
Yes, exactly. So
that's cool.
She was
putting in a spoonful of sugar?
Yes.
Hey, I'll be here.
Put some sweet water.
Try the tacos.
So this is what my ghost story decided to go with. They called it the bride wore black, or the woman in black. The woman in black. Where in the heck they got all that? I have no idea. But that's what they took and ran with. That's the name of our segment. And it's probably the only one you can't even bring up anymore. I find that interesting.
Interesting. Well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Curran Hall.
But what I was going to say about the clock.
Yeah.
I go into the living room and I say, Mary, Avril, if y'all are here, I'm just letting you know that I'm going to not work here anymore. I'm going to start a tour, and I'm going to be talking about both of you. And I hope you like what I'm going to do. The clock chimed. And it ran consistently, chimed on every hour for the 2 weeks that I remained there.
Wow. Okay.
That's amazing.
So that is interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, because I think that's a really unique way for energy to express itself, I guess,
Yeah.
Like, here's something that, I know it'll get their attention.
Yes. But the shed is, it's a building that's separate from the main house. But at some point in the house's history, they brought it and attached it to the house. And it became the bedroom and bathroom of Avril in later years, and also where her daughter was telling me about it and all of that. Because back in the day, they didn't have bathroom facilities. They had to be added through the centuries or years.
Oh, sure, right. Because in 1843, they don't have running water.
Yes.
So it's just you got to go to the.
You got to go to the
shed.
What's it called? The shed.
The outhouse.
The pit toilet.
The shed was an office.
Okay.
But it's called the. What's it called? They didn't call it the outhouse, the privy.
Oh, right. Oh, the privy.
They called it the privy.
So
a lot of the artifacts in this case came from where the privy area must have been.
All right. Well, a
lot of glowing swamp gas in there.
Right.
Well, a lot of crap went down there,
That's right. And they used to put everything, dolls, toys.
Yeah.
Dump it in the privy.
Yes.
Okay.
In the privy.
And so Curran Hall's got crazy stories. Now, what other places have you been on investigations on in the area?
The MacArthur Museum, Paul's House, which is chapter 4 in the book. Ghost hunters came. They called me, wondered if I knew of anybody. They couldn't get into any of the places around here. So they called me, and they wanted to know if I knew of anybody. My friend owns Paul's House. And so I said, well, let me talk to some people. And it was vacant then. She was using it as a rental house.
Okay.
Have you read chapter 4 yet?
Yes. Yes,
you have. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, they agreed. So they wanted to do her house too, because her house is connected. They're right next door. And so
did they do a full investigation?
She got more proof than they did.
Wow.
They rip roaring up here. I don't know if you know ghost hunters.
No, I've seen it a bunch of times. Sure.
And here we are in Little Rock, and they're talking about coming into town, and then they unload all their stuff. They put the renters up in a hotel somewhere. They put Amber and her family up somewhere,
so
they could have full reign of the house. They were allowed to come back during the daylight to, because they have school children and all of that, and get what they need. But at nighttime, They didn't pick up much of anything.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were there one night, and I was using the Dowsing Rods. And what I like about the tour is that the non-believers want to say, let me use those rods, and we'll see. And nothing happens. And this happened to a young man. I said, do you believe in the spirit world? And he goes, not at all. And I said, then they're responding.
Yeah, because why would they want to communicate with you if you don't? It's like, if somebody doesn't respect you, or why would you want to communicate with them?
What kind of stuff was happening at that house that they were going to do? Yeah, that they were going to do a show.
Well, there were a lot of deaths associated with the house. And it's about the only place in town that would agree to have them do it. Basically, it was, I mean, most any place that they're going to go has something to do with the haunting.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's just that they were the only place in Little Rock that
they could get into.
And Paul, like what was happening there? Like what kind of deaths had happened?
Okay. For instance, the couple that everybody knew, the last couple that lived there, she was shot in the downstairs bedroom.
Oh my gosh.
And that's Bonnie. And then Paul, the person that shot Bonnie, was trying to shoot him, but the revolver, the bullets wouldn't come out or something. He was on an emphysema tank and an oxygen tank for emphysema, and so she tried to suffocate him.
Oh.
So.
Wait, why were they trying to kill? What did Paul and Bonnie do to make people mad enough to kill him?
Bonnie knew the woman. She had come late one night to have a conversation. Obviously, she came to do harm because she brought the gun with her. Or maybe she went to go back to get it. I can't remember. But anyway,
Either way, she's mad enough to kill him.
Right, she is. They were having a discussion about something. And Bonnie was a great researcher at our medical center here. Everybody loved Bonnie and Paul. And she was very smart. And she was, on the brink of discovery and all of that. It's a very, very bad thing to have happen.
So that happens there.
That's major tragedy.
Are you getting impatient? It's like, okay, so that, and then...
No.
So when did the ghosts come out?
Let me just tell you this.
I'm just interested, because, for Paul's house, I'm like, okay, like that's a major thing to happen. But like, it seems like something, were Paul and Bonnie up to something?
Well...
Like how do you get killed? Like how do you get killed? Usually when you get killed, you're mixed.
They're not the only people
that
got killed in the house.
Okay.
I mean, it started.
Right, the house has more history.
It started, it was built in the late 1800s. The man that lived there, I had a wife and I think 4 children, and yellow fever or something was going around. So his entire first family all passed away. So he ends up marrying another woman, and they have, I think, 6 children, and they live about a block away. They built the great big, his name was Cornish. It's one of the famous houses downtown, the Cornish House. Okay, those were the first deaths, natural or not. That's what the first death. Then a few years later, we've got 2, they worked at a hospital. We're not sure if they were nurses or not, but they were entertaining some menfolk from the hospital.
Having a party.
As they're wont to do.
As you do. Some candy stripers.
That's right. So they were both shot in the head.
Oh my God.
I know. So these are
so
like...
one was kept on life support.
Oh my gosh.
I think it was a triplex at that time. So the neighbors could hear what was going on and called for help. So the one lady never came out of the coma. So as soon as they took her off of the life support, she died. The other one, they had rushed her because she was unconscious. They had rushed her to the hospital, and she had braided hair. And when they were getting ready to shave her to do brain surgery, they discovered the bullet was in the braid. It hadn't penetrated her head.
Oh, well,
all right,
lucky.
Ladies. There's more than just style to those braids.
She was able to tell who the bad people were. So they were serving time because she was a witness.
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's huge.
But I think that's interesting. Just like a house can have such violent history.
Yeah, and lives taken in such dramatic and tragic ways. You've got to think
like not even just like the guy was old and he just passed away. Yeah, sure.
I mean,
instead it's like shot,
right?
fever.
You'd think they'd be. I could see where some unsettled spirits might be lurking. And
my friend never took out the canning jars that Bonnie did. I mean, she was into canning. So in the kitchen area on these shelves are all of these jars. that Bonnie worked on. So we're coming from the upstairs, downstairs one night. There was about 6 of us kind of, investigating. And everybody has their camera looking into the kitchen. They're going, wow, look at this. And you see these orbs just moving around like this, just like having a field day, just going up and down like a little roller coaster.
Wow. So
that's neat.
So it sounds, so that's why they picked Paul's house, because it has plenty of history and everything associated with it.
Just the stories alone. I mean, it's like hard to even believe that all those things could happen in the same location.
Yeah, like I think about my condo and like nothing weird's happened there.
You never know, Mike.
Right. No, well, not yet.
Watch out for that light in the hallway to go off some night.
That's right.
I would love that. Kind of.
I don't know.
No, there was a guy, I would kind of love it. But there was, I had rented it out. I'd rented out to a guy, and he had made friends with the neighbors who had lived around there, and 2 of the neighbors had died. Like one guy died of a heart attack just a couple years ago, young, not an old guy, and another guy had killed himself like 2 doors down. And I knew they were friends with the guy that had lived there, and so I do get some nights like in the middle of the night. And stuff,
if you wake up,
I'm like, hey. They're not gonna, like in life, they would just walk over and knock on the door. Like, they're not just gonna walk in
walk
tonight.
Through the door?
Yeah, and just be like, hey, where's Rich? What are you doing here? I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah.
It's me.
You can manifest things. You start thinking about something.
That's right.
And it happens.
Great. And now I've said this aloud.
So when you go back home, it's going to be a whole field day for you.
There's going to be a party in your condo.
They're already there. Tonight.
Linda,
why do you think there is a haunting? This is what we always talk about. First thing on the tour nights. You're standing in the center of one of the most haunted places in the South, the museum. Why would it be haunted?
Well,
usually people say because somebody died here.
Yeah, either that or
we want it to, like
someone on
will it,
or a spirit on the other side of the veil or whatever you want to call it. Has business that's unresolved,
unfinished,
or they just it's a place that
it has to do with attachment.
Okay.
So if somebody died there and they feel attached to that place,
sure.
Like Bonnie and Paul, they both died in the house, so they would naturally want to stay around. They loved the house. They renovated the house.
Put a lot into it.
Their friends were there.
Yeah.
Because they literally go back and forth to my friend's house and back over to their house. But people who have rented feel the presence of someone there. Mm-hmm. And but on tour night, I've had people go up to the front porch. When I was able to go inside, I can't always, if it's rented, go.
Sure.
You do it on tour night. We just drive by there. And sometimes I'm in the renter's parking place, and they'll go, could you move your trolley?
Nice.
I have to get in front of my house. They get sick before they go in the house. They say, I can't go in there. I can't deal with this.
Oh, wow.
So people have some reactions like that. I had a woman call me, and she told me that she had gone by there, not knowing anything about the house. She was looking for a rental property. And she was walking around, and she looked up, and she saw this woman looking back at her from the upstairs window.
Oh, uh-oh.
And she described what appeared to be Bonnie.
Really?
Yeah. And she said, I just had this awful, scary feeling. I just had to leave. I had to get out of there. And she said, when I got in my car, she said this big, bright light came through. I think it was from behind, just came right through, between the seats and just went on out the front of the car. And she said, I couldn't get out of there fast.
But do you think, because, if I saw that, I might say, oh, well, maybe Bonnie just made herself appear to me because she's like, hey, a roommate. Right. But if it's a bad feeling, then it's like, was Bonnie get out of my territory?
She was scared.
Yeah.
She didn't feel
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I could see where you might be frightened just because you're not accustomed to seeing otherworldly things.
And that's the thing that I was going to ask about. So, do you I was making a joke before that, hey, I see something, I'm going to wet my pants and run away. Right. If I see something weird, I'm going to run away. But do you find that generally it's just, like, what should people be scared of? You know what I mean? Like, we were talking about Ouija boards. Like, we don't want to screw around with Ouija.
They should be scared of humans.
Right, but we don't want to, you said we shouldn't screw around with Ouija boards because it might open a portal or something like that. Okay.
Well, you could have a bad spirit. You could have a bad spirit attached to you or,
but that's what I'm...
unintentionally.
You mean, what do you need to be scared of as far as the paranormal goes?
Yeah, because you also mentioned protection.
Yes.
Because you're like, well, you don't do that without protection. It's like, well, what do you, like, you wear a hat?
Protection
like, what
from
do you
what?
do?
Before any investigation, you want to say, like I said, we come in peace. We mean you no harm. We're not changing anything about you. But we'd like to know if you're here. You just try to talk to them. Some people light a white candle.
Okay.
But if you go in there, wham, slam, bam, I know you're having a beverage right now, but if you've been drinking, doing drugs, and you are at a weak point, if there is anything evil there, they will take advantage of that.
They'll attach to that. Oh,
that's right.
Interesting.
And then you've got to worry about getting unattached,
Right.
which may involve a cleansing. But, you know, I've had people come and talk to me about having these mean spirits or entities in their house. And, you know, how they would be sitting on top of, like, one of them had a daughter, and she came in from college, and she just screamed and went running into her parents' bed. And she was so afraid because there was something mean in the house that was trying to pin her down in her bed. Some people call it a sleep. There's something when you're kind of like in a deep, dead sleep.
Hypnagogic.
What?
Is that like the
Hypnagogic trance?
That's
or
a what?
hypnagogic trance where you're asleep, you wake up,
Yeah.
and you see something and you're paralyzed.
Yeah, it's a paralysis.
Paralysis.
it's like what they said with the
Paralyzation.
succubus or the incubus or whatever, that you know,
Oh, yeah.
you feel like something's crushing your chest in the middle of the night.
Yes.
And so, okay, that's a good tip, because, you know, my sister, when she talks about the paranormal investigation group that she goes with, obviously nobody can have any beers or whatever before they go, because the idea is if you felt something, you want to make sure that you are completely lucid.
You're actually witnessing it. You're not.
Yeah, and you're not just
imagining
feeling
it,
after
you're-
effects of
yeah.
some substance or something
Besides,
like that.
why would you want to drink? Once you enjoy the tour,
Exactly.
you know, why would you drink
Right.
for something you need to learn and enjoy?
Right.
Yeah, I don't allow drinking.
You want to be in the right mind
Happened
state.
one time with an office group. They were raising it and made it miserable for the other people.
I bet.
And
Because everything's jokey and nobody's really.
yeah, and I get asked, you know, can I bring my baby? No, you cannot. Can I bring, you know, my child, you know, 6 years old? They watch all the ghost shows on
Scooby-Doo.
television.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Really? I said, well, let me tell you something. It's mostly an educational tour. They would fall asleep because they are bored
Right.
for their age level.
Sure, absolutely.
You can certainly bring them if they're used to being in public and they act good, but, you know.
A television program
It's
is
not going to be
designed
fun
to be
for them.
No, it's not going to be fun.
entertaining. Right. Like a television program is designed to be quick, bam, 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 entertainment, which, you know, kids can,
Yeah.
with a short attention span, can.
I have a little handful of
Digest.
people that come every year on my tour, and they
That's
they
cool.
say you never do the same tour twice.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's fun.
That's a nice compliment to you.
Well, this, everything changes and happens.
That's true. Time.
Yeah.
The timeline changes things.
Exactly.
Oh, I had something that I thought was interesting. We were talking about before the show, and you were saying about a paranormal support group.
Oh,
Yes.
I was curious about that. If you could tell us a little bit
All
about
of us that are in the paranormal community get, you know, questions a lot. And, you know, this cute little girl was on one of my tours, and she said, I was getting ready to call you because my little 3-year-old is seeing people in his room now, and I don't know what to do about that.
Wow.
And I
that
said,
would be,
you know, do you think it's part of his imagination? What's he been watching on television? Is his older 4-year-old brother
Yeah.
teasing him?
Right.
Trying to
is he trying to get
analyze?
attention?
So I was telling her when we decided to form this group, and she said, yes, I definitely want to come, because there are a lot of people out there that have more experience than I do, but a lot of us come with different,
Angles.
things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's going to be a way, it's all about trying to help people. We
Okay.
don't want anyone to be afraid. That's what I was telling all the kids last night from the high school. I said, all of us are going to die, and you should not be afraid to die.
What? What are you saying?
Oh my
that,
gosh, I'm only 15.
Wait, hold on. I'm not ready for this.
Right. Well, when the kids. So you did a big high school presentation last night?
Yeah, we sure did. I mean, it was amazing.
Okay.
Oh, okay. It was amazing. I mean, I just didn't know how it was going to work out, but my paranormal friends and I decided that if we take, they came in 3 buses, so we would each take a bus and then we would do a rotation. So they benefited from knowing all 3 of us.
Okay.
And that worked pretty good until the 2 upstairs decided to switch with each other, and then my group had no place to go.
Well, that sounds like the greatest high school field trip ever.
They are here in Arkansas to help clean up our tornado-stricken community. This is what they do on their spring break.
Oh, that's a great thing.
They were in Washington, Illinois last year, and they chose to come here in Arkansas. We have 3 communities that were pretty badly damaged, debris still everywhere. It's been over a year. And they've been on our television. The television stations have been going and filming them. And that's one thing I mentioned last night. I said, my gosh, y'all just come into town, total strangers, and you're on all the networks. Unbelievable.
Wow. Right. They don't even need a press person.
That's right. Unbelievable.
But they deserve to be, because, man, that's a lot of work.
No, a lot
It sure
of work.
is.
It's
hard
a
work.
good way to. It's a good way to spend your time that a lot of people just spend screwing around or relaxing or anything
Exactly.
like that.
I mean, here are these young people don't know what direction they want to go in.
Yeah.
And I was talking with the principal, and he said a lot of these children, are looking toward their future in college. And when they have down there that they helped all these communities.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
I mean, it's going to really help.
Yeah. Shows character.
It does.
So, where can people find your book? Where can people find your
Then
tour?
go to Barnes and Noble if you want to go online.
Amazon is where I got it.
That's where you got it?
On my Kindle.
Wendy vouches for it.
I got it on the Kindle version, actually. So I just downloaded it right there.
So we're going to put a link to that in the show notes. And then
That'd be nice.
Your website is
hauntedtoursoflittlerock.com.
hauntedtoursoflittlerock.com.
We'll have that link,
in the
too.
show notes too.
Yeah. And then I've got a Facebook page, and I keep that pretty much going and updated, and there'll probably be a link to your show on there. You see.
And so anytime, if anybody's coming through Little Rock, make sure that you contact Linda.
Yeah, I wish we had more time, because I really want to go and see some of those cool things.
You mean it's about to end?
No, I mean, I wish we had more time in Little Rock. Unfortunately, we have the 8-hour drive tomorrow to Austin. So
I was hoping to show y'all a quick 30 minutes tomorrow or something, just kind of,
Oopsies. Sorry.
Here's this place, here's that place.
Yeah, I would, I mean, especially would love to come and actually do the tour to see all the places.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So maybe someday when we're touring through here again, we can try to time it.
You could come and stay in the bed and breakfast.
And we can get a paranormal experience ourselves.
That'd be cool.
Okay. Well, it goes on the list.
They always tell me that the Saturday after the Friday night, things start to happen in the house, the bed and breakfast.
Oh, really? Because people are in there and...
Yes, we stir things up. And that's another YouTube video. I had a mother-daughter staying there. A lot of my tour people like to stay there. And then at nighttime, they like to go exploring. So they're up in the card room in the attic, and they have a flashlight, and they actually are talking to the spirit up there, and he turns the flashlight on and off.
Cool.
Oh, no, I've heard that too.
That's cool.
So I went to a ghost hunting class that somebody was doing at a local community center in Minneapolis.
We do those here.
And it was like they said with the flashlight, what you do is you leave it almost turned on, so it's just at the edge, because you want to make it as easy for them as possible.
The least amount of energy required to alter
turn
the...
on. And then you ask a question, and it would either flash once or twice, and
so cool.
And she says they often do an investigation. And I'd never heard of that before. So the idea of having it right up to the edge and the flashing on or off is very cool.
You can go, I think it's Empress Bed and Breakfast Flashlight.
Oh, okay. We'll try
like
to find that and put it
We'll put that in the show notes too.
Great.
So great.
Well,
so that's where you find Linda. And Linda, thank you for joining us.
Yes, Linda, thank you so much.
That
was so nice of you to join
I know
us.
Wendy. I've been talking to her all this time.
Yes,
we're old friends now.
I'm just sitting there and I'm like, well, all these places sound like places that I need to visit. They sound like places that a lot of people would have a really cool time. And the fact that you had experiences from people on your tour is exciting.
Oh, yes. Last night, one of the high school girls was screaming. So
yeah, I mean, that's amazing. It's neat to get to see other people experiencing
just remember that everything, we call it occupation. I mean, when you start talking about being a paranormal investigator, that sounds like a crime scene. We're trying to think of another term to use.
Yeah.
I don't know, but communicator. But the thing is, everything is occupied.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a spirit most anywhere.
And you have to think that as time goes on, more people are dying.
That's right.
So, I mean, the spirit world is just
filling up.
That's right.
Every place you go.
But know this, that we have a very hot area in central Arkansas, and that is because underneath all of this topsoil is a crystal vein. And crystal, you've heard about crystals.
Well, I've heard, yeah. I mean, there's
and how they're
associated with energies, associated with crystals.
So I didn't realize that. It's all the way from Hot Springs over into Oklahoma, and here, majority of what is underground is a crystal vein. We've got the Arkansas River here.
Okay, so is there like a mining? Is there a big mining?
There is around Hot Springs.
Okay.
Yes, I wear all Hot Springs crystals.
Oh, cool.
Okay, interesting.
Beautiful.
All right.
It's got a beautiful ring on for the people that
One
can't
night
see
I'm going
it.
to get hit in the head, and it's going to be like, no, please don't. You're gonna really want to come back and kill me because maybe you can get $20 or $30.
No, it's a very pretty ring.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But anyway,
yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and we appreciate your being open to our podcast.
Oh,
and,
yes, good to meet y'all.
This is wonderful, and thanks to the Revolution for having us here tonight. This is a wonderful place.
Very nice.
Really cool. We're looking forward to exploring the tequila and tacos, which are the specialty here.
Yes, is that in the other room?
I think it is. Yeah. So we're gonna find out as soon as we've shut things down here. But are we gonna play a few songs? Maybe.
Yeah, we should play a song for the internet.
Yeah, we'll just do a couple songs for you guys. And thanks for tuning in. And thank you so much to our live audience. You've been wonderful. We really appreciate your being here. Here's a little applause for you.
Yeah, thank you for hanging out.
She's so glad she came. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's jump on. Let's play a couple songs for the camera.
All right.
Okay.
And the podcast.
And you can find the show notes at othersidepodcast.com/31. So
Podcast 31.
yes, we'll send you the link.
Reversed, it's 13.
Oh, that's right.
Dun, dun, dun.
Lucky 13. All right. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at othersidepodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.